1513 BC, Moses led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt with the connive of God. Nearly 600,000 men, alongside women and children, amounted to an estimated 1.5 million people leaving Egypt towards the promised land, Canaan. During the journey, God summoned Moses to the peak of Mount Sinai, gave him 2 stone tablets carved with the 10 Commandments, and instructed him to build a sacred chest to store the tablet of the 10 Commandments. A covenant, or a contract, was made between God and the Israelites. The sacred chest itself was a staggeringly powerful device that could part rivers, level mountains, destroy armies, and provide food for 1.5 million people in the desert for over 40 years. Some say the sacred chest was a technologically advanced device that was instructed by extraterrestrial lives over 3,500 years ago. It is the mythical, biblical object, the Ark of the Covenant. The Pharaoh of Egypt feared the Israelites that one day they would turn against the Egyptians, so he forced them to become his slaves. The slavery and torture remained for 430 years. 1513 BC marked the end of the Israelites being in Egypt for generations. They were released from slavery to leave Egypt with the covenant of God. They departed with their leader Moses to the promised land of Canaan. During their journey in the Sinai desert, God summoned Moses to the peak of Mount Sinai and gave him 2 stone tablets carved with the 10 Commandments and specific instructions to build an ark, the Ark of the Covenant, as the basic principle that the Israelites must listen to him and obey his laws. In return, God would govern the Israelites' lives. The instructions to make the ark were clear: 1.15 meters long, 0.7 meters wide, and 0.7 meters high. In the past, the measurement unit was done in cubits, where 1 cubit was equivalent to 46 centimeters. It was overlaid with pure gold, molding both inside and out, and 4 gold rings were cast on it and fastened to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. The poles were inserted into the rings on the sides of the ark to carry it. On the top of the ark, there were 2 cherubim, the second highest angels, spreading their wings opposite each other and facing the center. So, after Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hands, his face was radiant. Other than the instructions to build the ark, God wanted them to find the tent where they were stationed, the holy tent. The Ark of the Covenant was placed in the sacred tent called Tabernacle, and God would be with them. Therefore, some speculated that God was using the ark to communicate with people on earth. It was strictly instructed that no one should touch the ark, and only the Levites, the members of Hebrew tribe of Levi who assisted the priests, could carry it. They must carry the ark using 2 wooden poles inserted through rings on the sides, and touching the ark itself will result in death at the hands of God. According to the history of the Israelites, over 1 million people traveled from Egypt to Israel, wandering in the wilderness and walking in the desert for 40 years. This is incredible. How can these people survive for 40 years in the desert? It is written in the Old Testament of the Bible in detail that the ark provided food for the people. Every morning, before sunrise, a bread-like substance, white in color, rained from the sky. This mystical substance was called the manna. The people then went out to gather it and pounded it into a cake, which was then baked, resulting in something that tasted like a cake baked with oil. It rained down from the sky 6 days a week, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will not be any, so the portion was doubled on the sixth day. The Israelites were instructed to eat what they had gathered each day. It would spoil overnight. The exception was that it was stored the day before Sabbath, when twice the amount of manna was gathered. This did not spoil overnight. It is believed that the Ark of the Covenant provided food for the Israelites during their travels in the desert, for a 40-year period prior to the conquest of Canaan. Some scholars suggest a particular plant in the desert, and that manna could have been coming from tamarisk trees. Tamarisk trees were known to be rather abundant in southern Sinai, and the honeydew secreted by the tamarisk is similar to wax. It melts in the sun and is sweet and aromatic like honey. The dew had a murky yellow color, fitting somewhat with the biblical descriptions of manna. However, being mostly composed of sugar, it would be unlikely to provide sufficient nutrition for such an enormous population to survive over a long period of time. Other researchers believed manna to be a form of lichen, which is a composite organism that arises from algae or cyanobacteria living among filaments of multiple fungi species in a mutualistic relationship. But there is a catch. If manna originates from the tamarisk tree or lichen, how could it be scheduled to provide a single portion of a meal from day 1 to day 5, and twice the portion on the 6th day? Religious scholars believe that manna is not a naturally occurring food, but indeed one that was provided directly by God. Some say the manna was an advanced engineered food to provide enough energy and nutrition for the Israelites, and the device, the Ark of the Covenant, created manna out of thin air with highly advanced technology. Some say that manna is, in fact, extraterrestrial in origin. No modern technology can replicate such a device that could feed 1 million people for 40 years. Some say that this extraterrestrial technology performs an enhanced version of what plants do, photosynthesis, but in an extremely short period of time. Both CO2 from the air combined with H2O, which also exists as vapor in the air, can synthesize sugar, which is an important energy source for survival. Manna also appeared in the Thioba prophecy, where a French man named Michel de Marquet was abducted on the 26th of June 1987 to an interstellar planet called the Thioba. In his book, he illustrates a moment when an individual of the abductors, the advanced extraterrestrial civilization, had given him their food. His description was completely the same as that of the manna. When the Israelites set out from Shittim and went to Jordan, they encountered another obstacle, the Jordan River, a wide and open water they had to cross. They were wondering how they were going to overcome it. God told them to take up the Ark of the Covenant and pass on ahead of the people. As soon as the Levites who carried the ark reached the river and their feet touched the water's edge, the water split in half and stood up in a heap. Dry land appeared before them, and they passed the Jordan River. The Ark of the Covenant had the ability to manipulate a large mass of water terrain. After the Israelites crossed the Jordan River, they entered foreign territory. To travel towards the promised land of Canaan, they had no choice but to invade some countries in their path. According to the book of Joshua in the Bible, the Israelites arrived in Gilgal, the eastern border of Jericho. They saw that Jericho was surrounded by tall city walls, and the gate was securely barred from the Israelites. God gave instructions to the Israelites to carry the Ark of the Covenant, with 7 priests carrying trumpets of ramses horns in front of it, and march around the city once a day for 6 days. On the 7th day, they marched around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. On the 7th day, when they circled the city for the final time around, the priests sounded the trumpets, and the army shouted, "The wall of the city has collapsed." Jericho was soon after leveled and burned to the ground, along with all of its residents, except for a few. The Ark, the device, clearly had a military function. On top of the Ark were the figures of 2 angels, and it was said in the Bible that God's presence came to rest in the tiny space between them, and that was the place where heaven and earth touched. The space between the angels on the lid of the Ark was known as the mercy seat, upon which the image of God would allegedly sit when communicating with the Levite priest. Based on the numerous accounts of the Ark's incredible power, some ancient astronaut theorists have proposed that it may have been an electrical capacitor, a device used for storing and transmitting energy, and that energy could be a communicating medium to send his image and word to people in real time. Because of the Ark's high energy, the priest had to wear a garment to protect himself from being exposed to radiation. The cloths may have looked like and had similar effects to the lead garments worn by radiographers in the modern world. If we are able to discover the device with our current technology and understanding, we might be able to harness a glimpse of its technology and maybe know its origin. But where has it gone? The Ark moved around frequently, but eventually it was settled in ancient Israel, in the Holy of Holies in the Temple of Solomon, Jerusalem, founded around 957 BC. 370 years later, when the Babylonians conquered Jerusalem in 587 BC, they descended upon the city, destroying everything in their path, including Solomon's temple, where the Ark was kept, and vanished from history. No one had recorded the whereabouts of the Ark ever again, not even the Bible. The Japanese Jewish common ancestry theory is a fringe theory that appeared in the 17th century as a hypothesis claiming that the Japanese people were the main part of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Some versions of the theory claim that a specific group within the Japanese people had descended from Jews. In Japan, mikoshi is a sacred religious palanquin, and it looks like the Ark with 4 poles. There are interesting links between the Ark and the mikoshi. In ancient times, Israelites sang and danced in front of the Ark during festivals, and Japanese did the same. In one festival in Kyoto, at the Gion Shrine, men performed a ritual where they carried an omikoshi across a river, a remarkably similar scene to the ancient Israelites carrying the Ark through the Jordan River during their exodus. In Japan, some of the places where the Japanese worship God have no idol. This is similar to the Israelites' God. Is this all just mere coincidence? Or is this influenced by ancient contact with the Israelites carrying the Ark of the Covenant? Some biblical scholars suggest that the Ark was hidden deep in a cave for centuries and then discovered in its hiding place and was taken away by a group of monks, the most skilled fighting unit of the Crusades, known as the Templar Knights, founded in 1119 AD. Some say that the Ark was transported to France by the Templar, and some believe it was then moved to Scotland. Some suggest that it was taken far away to North America, where it was hidden deep underground. And some say the Ark of the Covenant is not hidden at all, but is located at the Church of Saint Mary of Zion in Aksum, Ethiopia, where an ancient Jewish population resided long ago. A solitary monk who was not allowed to leave the church was charged with guarding the holiest relic. It is a job he has devoted his life to, and one he will keep until his death. An interesting fact is that every generation of the Guardians of the Ark had a very short lifespan. Guardians often had issues with their eyes, suffering from cataracts, eye clouding, which was caused by the Ark's radiation. The technology of the device can only be explained if it is alien in origin. The Ark of the Covenant is an extremely advanced communication device. The device enabled real-time holograms and interstellar audio communication. The Ark had the ability to generate near unlimited amounts of food out of thin air, which fed over 1 million people for 40 years in an extremely harsh environment. The Ark had a mysterious ability where it was able to manipulate the large water terrain with ease. The Ark had a military function that leveled fortified city walls in the blink of an eye. Some say the day the Ark of the Covenant is found, we might discover the way to communicate with the entity who once gave instructions for Moses to build it. The day will be an absolute joy for many. But what will happen to humanity as a whole since that day? The nations will fight over this potential weapon of mass destruction. The conflict will be unavoidable due to its incredible significance to religion and belief. What powers and capabilities may the Ark provide to its final beholder? The ability to create an unlimited supply of hydrogen bombs out of the thin air. Level any terrain, ignoring geographical obstacles. Ignoring the concept of army provisions, and feeding an unstopping, unyielding horde of soldiers, frenzied by belief. The ambitions that can boil in the man's heart are unimaginable. Will the discovery of the Ark of the Covenant take away more than it could give? Is humanity prepared to harness the gift that the Ark could provide without triggering a doomsday? Until the day the Ark of the Covenant is found, no one has these answers.